Hey, this is gonna take another direction. Has anybody, I guess it's a general question about past lives and what you think about it. I mean, I've heard so many different things, and in my own experience, past life, reincarnation, rebirth, you can talk about all the philosophies you want, but I don't know. I have this kind of like strong feeling that that it's true to some degree somehow, at least partially. Reincarnation is real. I mean, it's weird. This is gonna take a complete. Uh, I guess you could say this is a complete detachment from any kind of um, scientific or philosophical conjecture. Uh, not necessarily all philosophical, but definitely scientific. None of this can be proven. This just goes down to my own personal experiences in life. Um, but I've always felt that um, there was something real about reincarnation, and I would meet a lot of people in my life that often had a strong influence for me, or some kind of connection, or they would lead to somebody that I would have a very strong bond or connection with. And I've met people who seem familiar before, and I mean, I've had dreams before that are very interesting and may have something to do with reincarnation. Um, and to dabble, I guess, into New Age philosophy just a little bit. If you ever heard of the Michael teachings, I found these to be very intriguing because they talked. I don't even want to get into who Michael is. It's sort of like a collective, other conscious being that channels through somebody. Um, I don't know what I don't even want to get into that at all. But what he says, or he, she, it. I guess it's a he, Michael. I don't know. Um, what he claims in his teachings are very interesting, and it includes. I guess the big picture is that all souls are go through lifetimes, death and rebirth, and souls age. They mature, and they mature spiritually and I guess metaphysically to some degree, and to some extent they have a choice over their lifetime and how things are going to be experienced and who they're going to meet. I don't know how, but basically we all go through that. There's baby souls, young souls, adult souls, mature souls, and then old souls, and each one has specific characteristics that you can note, not metaphysically but just about someone's character, um, the things that drive them. uh, and a lot of the world, I think, are younger souls, and I don't know how that works out technically, but it makes sense in a technical level. I don't know if the Michael teachings meant this to be, but if population's always growing, then most of the people who are here are probably are not old souls, because yeah, there's more people now than there used to be. So yeah, there are new souls coming up. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting way to see that. I thought it worked out like that too. But a lot of people are younger souls, and younger souls tend to be more work driven. It's where we accumulate most of our karma, and it's where we it's really the, I guess, round where we learn to work and raise and create structure, and it's very similar to personal psychological maps of how we develop over time. We look for structure and attachment to family structure and organization. We may eventually break out of that or return to it with a greater understanding of it. Um, and then mature and older souls tend to be very developed, less worker driven, and more. They've seen a lot about the world. They have a lot of karma that they're working through, and there's a lot needs to be released, and there's still a lot to be learned, and often enough they're like the troubled souls that are great at creating something, but have a lot of issues in their own hearts, I guess you could say. um, older souls are actually, as Michael teachings say, a lot like older people. They sort of are kind of detached from the physical things of the world. They may not necessarily want to work so hard anymore on the same subjects. They may be less attached to worldly things. Um, Basically, their energy, if you want to call it that, their soul is evolving to higher frequency, higher dimension of consciousness, or I don't know how else you want to explain it. But they're basically in two worlds, and they're kind of moving on to the next stage. And because of that, physical things are harder to do and concentrate on. And also, they're more annoyed by people because they're always trying to work and do stuff and do stuff. But older souls tend to simply to be working out most of their karma, so they have much more clear insight. Usually, they can be impatient with younger souls, but they tend to be very more simple, simply being that sort of thing. Not that you can't do that in earlier, I'm sure, but older souls, it tends to be easier. Um, they tend not to become pioneers of this world and, uh, break boundaries and rewrite systems. They tend not to do that. Mature souls tend to do that, according to the Michael teachings, but older souls tend to be more lax about it. I find myself, I don't know about you guys, but I find myself definitely in older, mature soul, because I do like to do stuff, but then I get tired of it, go back and forth between the two. It's just a very interesting diagram. I do recommend checking it out. Uh, in a way, it's very integral because it sort of encompasses different soul ages, different needs of those ages, and accepts all of them as being all partially true and all needing to work together. And it doesn't just see things as like a flatland. There's depth to things. There's development to to souls. Um, I don't know how much traditional religions talk about this. Even in Buddhism, there's not too much of an emphasis on souls. There's the acknowledgement of rebirth and enlightenment, but they don't really talk too much about um, growing through lifetimes. I mean, I don't know if they necessarily meant this, but there's somewhat of an implication when we say, we're stuck in samsara, this cyclical thing, that there isn't much of a focus on spiritual development through lifetimes, which I think does happen and is very much part of my own experience. So there's definitely some spiritual growth happening through all of us, and there's a reason why we listen to each other and pop up here. It's not always so easy to rationally explain this sort of thing, and I wouldn't necessarily claim it to be this stuff. I couldn't explain it scientifically. I don't have a rational explanation for it, but it nonetheless is a very important part of at least my life, and I'm sure many others. There's this whole subtle energy system um, that can very much open up to you if you take not hold so strongly to your belief systems and biases. Um, Start listening to the body and the breath, and seeing how far we can go with these sort of things that we've kind of forgotten about and may not necessarily be entirely false. Um, Subtle energy systems is what they call, and has everything to do with healing and all that other kind of energy and feeling. I don't know about seeing auras or going that far, but I know there is this whole subtle system of energy at work, much like is talked about in Chinese medicine and Oriental medicine, about the subtle body systems. Not Tai Chi, but Tai Chi is very related to this. I was gonna say acupuncture and the systems in the body and the energy flow. There may be something to that. Of course, if you're not open to it, you may not see that, but there are many of us who have that experience, so I think it's a very important dimension of many people's lives, and it's interesting how it pops up east, west, north, south. But yeah, soul lives, what do you think? And thank you for listening. Make a comment or a response video if you're interested.